think that means that we're good to go then. So yeah, hello everybody. Thank you for joining today's Partner Week session. For those of you who have joined some of our sessions so far this week, welcome back. This is the final day of Partner Week. We've had a phenomenal week so far with some amazing speakers across a variety of topics, all just focused on maximizing the opportunity within the partner channel and the channel ecosystem as we look forward to 2025. And you're in for a treat today. I'm hoping that everything goes to plan. We don't mess up with the technology and that I don't press too many buttons. But we've got a great session planned for you today where I'm going to be joined by the wonderful Paul Spencer and Carl Connolly. Paul, currently the channel chief for T-Mobile for Business. He runs partner sales at T-Mobile for Business with over 20 years of experience within the channel, recognized as a leading channel chief by the channel company, as well as being co-founder of his own non-profit organization. And Carl, who's CMO and CTO of SellHub. I describe him as a technologist and a marketer, worked with some of the world's leading OEMs and technology vendors, with an experienced background in helping disties, channel partners, and kind of the broader channel ecosystem navigate digital transformation. So welcome, gents.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Great that you could be here. So today's conversation, we're going to talk a little bit around kind of how to think strategically about MDF. So very much around kind of the importance of collaboration, how vendors, primary agents, and agencies like ourselves at the marketing practice are working together to drive outcomes for sub-agents and resellers, and how sales and marketing alignment is going to be key to maximizing the value of MDF activities. So I'm going to go through a few questions with Paul and Carl today. I would encourage anybody who has any comments, questions, kind of things that you want to kind of bring up into the discussion, pop those in the chat. As we go through today's session, I'll bank some of those, and then by the time we get to the end of the discussion, we should have some time for a bit of a Q&A. So if you have thoughts you want to bring to the table today, please do. I would encourage you to pop those questions in the chat as we go through today's session. So I'm going to start, guys, by just asking each of you to share kind of a bit of your perspective on the current kind of channel landscape that you're operating in. So helping our audience understand some of your priorities, some of the challenges that you're facing, but then the opportunity that the channel is presenting for your business. So, Paul, I'll kick off and start with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's a thick question, Matt. And I just realized I'm the only one on this call without a cool accent. So the audience will have to just deal with my Minnesota accent, I guess. So if I think about what are the challenges that I think the channel is trying to help us solve, and then what's the channel going through? I think there's a couple of different things. I think number one is the channel is a continued ecosystem that continues to evolve. And what do partners do? And what do they do for their customers? And call it, Wayne Gretzky's old, how do you go skate to where the puck is going? And so Carl will probably talk a little bit about it, but he and I and some others have spent a lot of time in places like connected laptops or fixed wireless, which is a little bit antithetical to how the channel has operated in the past, which has been very switches and circuits, very agency model focused, which it was a great business and still is to some degree. However, we're in a much more mobility world than we've ever been before. And it represents a whole host of security threats that sit out there for companies. And I think that's a place where I will tell you at least from a T-Mobile perspective, we have a very hard and hardened stance around security, but we also need partners to help us go talk to their customers, because I think it's almost like insurance. You never need a strong security posture until you need it. You don't need it until you're breached, and then you needed it. When did you need it? You needed it 6 months ago is when you really needed it. And so when I look at the channel, I think security is a huge opportunity. I think anything connectivity, like just ask yourself this question. In 3 years, is the world going to be more or less connected wirelessly? It's going to be more connected wirelessly. So if that's the case, and you're a partner out there, and part of your business isn't about talking about your customer's mobility strategy and what are they doing for their employees and what's their security posture with those employees, you're probably going to wind up 3 years from now with a bunch of your competitors having gone past you because they were asking those questions, or your customers coming back to you and saying, hey, I'm having all these problems. You've helped me solve them for the last 15 years, but it just doesn't feel like you're helping me solve them now. I need your help. And so that as I look at the channel, I think those are some really interesting questions as we look into 25 and 26 and 27. What are those questions we should be thinking through? And that's usually where my brain goes.
Great. So welcome everybody. Thanks for having me, Matt, and delighted to have the chance to speak with Paul. So Matt, in the intro, you kind of threw out a lot of terms in terms of classification of entities. I'd just like to kind of roll back a little bit just so those who are on and maybe hearing about primary agents for the first time actually understand what that is, because that's actually what we do at SellHub. We are what's called a primary agent. The primary agent really is, I would argue, like a Rosetta Stone between our partners who we onboard, educate, train, and enable. And then on the other side, there's the carriers. So our job is to really help and be advocates for our partners to ensure they understand all of the great services and capabilities that T-Mobile's offer them, and then how they can monetize those solutions. So we really help educate, train, onboard, and help these partners with their go-to-market. That's our role in the channel. I would echo what Paul said 100%. Prior to being at SellHub, I was at Ingram Micro, a very large global distributor, where we built go-to-market for many channel partners. And the one thing that we were really focused on, Matt, was helping the partners make what we call the pivot. And Paul kind of gracefully put that into context, right? That's legacy VARs selling hardware and software are now moving towards more services-based. And that is a cultural and a fundamental shift. So from a priority perspective, you're seeing a lot of organizations going through their own business transformation that is changing the model, looking at ways to integrate services into their offering. And that's one of the ways that I think the channel is evolving. Second, I would say, one of the major priorities, and this seems very apparent, is that the market's very saturated, as you can imagine. There's a lot of partners out there. So differentiation and adding differentiation is very, very important. And to do that and to stay relevant in the eyes of your customers, you have to bring new skills. And Paul mentioned it, right? So mobility is a big focus of ours. We help organizations, partners specifically, develop mobility practices that helps them evolve beyond traditional wireless, which is Wi-Fi, into more advanced solutions like 5G, and help them understand what the potential is, how they can integrate that into their service offerings, and more importantly for the partner, obviously, how do they monetize that solution? I would think too, as well, from a priority perspective, one thing I'm seeing a lot of, Matt, in conversations is partners are trying to specialize, right? So many of them cast a wide net. Last year, I was at a conference, in fact, and one of the big analyst shops was their advice to the channel community at whole was to focus on 2 specific verticals and become experts at those. So I'm starting to see that a lot. And in so doing, these partners are now leveraging new means to advance themselves, such as leveraging data and AI, machine learning. And all of those capabilities really have to have a glue, a fundamental fabric together. And that, to Paul's point, is mobility. So obviously our job is to evangelize 5G into the channel. And that's kind of where we do and what we do and how we go about it.
I love that you've also kind of put on the record now as well that you are actually looking forward to this conversation with Paul today. So I think that is also worth a call out. So
I'd like to note that Carl said that. I did not, Matt, just to be clear.
Which takes me to my kind of next question.
Matt, Christmas has come early from my perspective. I've got my Christmas present, haven't I?
There you go. And so kind of for the relationship that you guys have and how that links to MDF, I'd like to kind of help our audience understand a little bit around kind of what the approach that T-Mobile has had to MDF in the past and how that might have changed recently, and where SellHub and the relationship there with kind of the primary vendor, the primary agent and sub-agent vendors kind of all fits together. So I don't know whether, I think, Paul, it'd be great if you could kind of give a bit of a summary of, how that MDF model has been and how it's kind of starting to evolve and that relationship with SellHub there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh man, there's so many different MDF models that are out there. Along with marketing, we operate a pretty healthy MDF budget in the channel. You're into a healthy 8-figure budget that we're spending with partners out there every year. So if you're sitting here from my lens and why, as much as it pains me to say, Matt, Carl's super important to my business, is I have called a dozen people like Carl in his company. But we have several thousands of partners. You take that into the other side, if you're on Carl's side of things, and what he said is they act like as a Rosetta Stone. I mean, I'm sitting here today in Seattle in our corporate office, and I mean, TFB alone is 5,000 employees. We do a fair amount of business. We're the largest telecommunications company on the planet. It's hard to navigate all of that stuff. If you're a partner, you get onboarded and you come into the program, how are you supposed to navigate all of this world? And so as we roll things out into next year, I think we've taken a couple of different approaches. So one of the consistent asks we always get from partners is, especially if I'm like a legacy wireline agent, I'm a legacy VAR. I've been maybe selling just laptops and some circuits and other things that's out there, maybe more of a little managed service flavor that's been involved in that. They're coming at this and going, I don't really know how to sell or talk to my customers about mobility. Like, because sometimes what I said of like, hey, what's 3 years of the world, you can see the panic set into their face in a meeting. When I'm sitting in their office, they go, God, we've never thought of that. And so then inevitably within 48 hours, they call you back and they'll say like, hey, well, this is great. You scared the heck out of us, but we don't know what to do about it. So how do we go sell? And so then you get involved into, well, what are the MDF programs? What's the co-sell material that's involved? And what are from a T-Mobile perspective, one of the ways that we like to utilize MDF in a pretty significant capacity is account-based marketing campaigns. And so we will go run campaigns with partners to drive leads back to partners. And then it's up to the partners to then go and call on those leads and call. But we do a lot of lead generation things. I think one of the things that's kind of been a legacy that doesn't really, just to be honest, and I might hurt some people's feelings on this, doesn't really provide value back to us is sort of your traditional, it doesn't mean we don't do them, but your traditional fund my SKO, fund my corporate event, fund my suite. Those are like really super low ROI from our perspective. It's really difficult to track and manage that. And even though we have a really thick budget, we have really big targets. And so every dollar counts. And so I have to manage and measure along with our marketing team. Every single dollar that we go spend in the channel has got to be measured back as an ROI. And so then just to maybe peel the onion back a little bit more for the partner community, if you're dealing with a company that's there's probably a lot of other companies that you're partnered with that aren't the largest telco on the planet. But if you look at like just T-Mobile as a perspective, which a lot of other companies are like this, TFB or the channel is not the biggest part of our business. Consumer is with T-Mobile. Like we're a huge consumer company. And so if I'm Mike Katz, our CMO, I go, if I put $1 on the machine over here, I know what I get here. If I put $1 here, this is what I get here. I put $1 here, I get here. So I would just ask for partners around there, just think through that when you're asking. It doesn't matter if it's T-Mobile or if it's any other, channel company that's out there, any other partners that you work with. Just think through that when you're asking for the dollars. You should be thinking about, like, channel is always a multiplier. So you should be able to multiply those dollars. If they're giving you $1, you should be able to return $3 or $4 back to them in terms of their revenue and their value. And you should really understand, what does that mean? I love it when I get asked this question from partners. Hey, Paul, what's important to you and T-Mobile? It's rare that I get asked it, but when people say that, I know that they're trying to understand our business, and it makes the conversation really a lot easier. In business and in anything, people buy from people they enjoy. You work with people you enjoy. So, Carl and I work together because we're find interesting things to work on together. But it's also really easy for me to work with Carl and John over at SellHub because they're people I enjoy working with. So when you start getting into these conversations, not everything is roses. There's plenty of times where we've had super difficult conversations and they're really no fun. And I'm sure Carl's hung up the phone and John's hung up the phone. And I know I have, and we're just like, I hate those guys. I don't want to, it happens. But if you're kind of understanding what's value to you, what's value to me, it makes a lot of these conversations go a lot easier because you now have a shared interest to be able to go develop together. That was a long answer, but I could talk on MDF for a couple of days, I feel like.
We'll have to get a follow-up in then.
It definitely feels like a few days have gone by.
Thanks, Carl.
Just kidding.
Thank you.
No,
20 minutes left.
Let me explain the relationship that we have with T-Mobile. First and foremost, SellHub has been around for about 25 years. Now, Matt, myself, John, and a few of our colleagues, we joined at the start of this year. And SellHub had been selling to many, many smaller VARs for many years, very successfully. What we brought, though, is a different perspective. And we're going after a different clientele. So when we were at Ingram, we were very focused on enterprise accounts. And we had this idea that we could emulate that out into an entity like SellHub. And so with T-Mobile's help and their investment through MDF, we were able to pivot the business such that we could focus on those strategic and very large accounts. I'm talking going from, a small shop into global system integrators, very large VARs, very large MSPs. And the MDF investment that T-Mobile made in SellHub was to build out that particular channel. So we've used MDF very creatively. We've used it to recruit those partners. As you can imagine, a partner like a very large global system integrator with thousands of salespeople and thousands of customers and a very complex selling motion needed to ensure that if they were making a decision in their cellular practice, they were aligning behind a primary agent that would deliver, right? So we had to instill confidence. We used MDF to recruit, to onboard. We used MDF to create complex training materials. And our training materials are very different, Matt, from regular providers. We focus on technical aspects, we focus on business aspects, and we focus on sales, right? So we have to build different kinds of materials for different personas, and having the funding to do that. We're exclusive with T-Mobile, I should stress that, which is very important to us. And our working collaboration with Paul and team is such that we can instill and build in the T-Mobile value prop and often interpret that in a way that makes sense for our partners, right? I think that's very important. Paul brought up a very interesting point. It's very apparent to us that even though 5G has been available in the US since 2018, it's still deemed in some circles as an emerging technology, but it's well and truly here and ready for prime time. However, traditionally VARs and MSPs haven't quite played in the cellular domain, or they haven't incorporated cellular into their solutions. And so with the help of the MDF funding, we've been able to build the right set of assets, the right campaigns, cherry picking the right partners to help them understand and build 5G and T-Mobile's value prop into their lexicon. I would say also, we've been able to, with your help, TMP's help, funded by MDF from T-Mobile, to build out very account-based marketing campaigns as well that are super specific. And one of the things the flexibility of the MDF budget that we get from T-Mobile has helped us do is also enable very specific marketing and demand gen assets. So for example, our partners leverage us to get on customer calls, right? So we're on calls, oftentimes doing the discovery, leading those calls on behalf of the partner. And then we can come away from those meetings, Matt, and with the MDF, then build all those micro campaigns for that particular customer. Think about very large rental car agencies, right? We'll have a meeting with the customer. We'll understand what their needs are. We'll distill down then what the value prop should be and build a custom asset that articulates the value of T-Mobile and what SellHub can bring. So that's very unique. And with T-Mobile's help and collaboration, we've been able to do some very unique things. I'll just say in the spirit of collaboration, we have a very tight relationship with Paul and his team. They're fantastic. The marketing team is wonderful. Amy, Leslie, and all of the supporting cast of characters, they help us do some unique things. So for example, if we want to bring a campaign out, we can do focus groups with those partners. We can do the discovery with those partners. We can learn from them and then bring back the partner's needs and do that translation then with T-Mobile's help to develop something that's very meaningful to their customers and specific to their customers. So MDF has been the catalyst, the fuel, if you will, for our business growth and our business pivot into more enterprise from SMB.
I love that. And so I think the things that I've taken away so far from this conversation are the fact that, you know, we have partners now that are selling a much broader variety of solutions that they ever have been. The traditional way of leveraging MDF doesn't necessarily have the same bang for buck that it used to. There's even more pressure than ever on marketing and sales teams to be able to prove outcomes and value from the investments that they're making into things like MDF. And actually, the closer that you can get to some of your partners as a vendor, you know, as in this case, you know, T-Mobile and SellHub, the closer you can understand each other's businesses, the more collaboration that you have around kind of, you know, the ways that you support growth, the more kind of you can think differently about new ideas to be able to leverage dollars that are being invested in growing channel business, the more likely you are to drive success. So kind of, you know, that's what I'm summarizing from some of the kind of points that you guys have made so far. And so I wanted to kind of give our audience kind of a quick summary of some of the things. As Carl talks about account-based marketing, Paul has mentioned it too, the ways that we've been partnering kind of from the agency side with T-Mobile and SellHub this year to build a pilot group of digital marketing ABM campaigns where, you know, we're taking a core solution area. So, you know, in this case, 5G connected laptops. We're leveraging some of the kind of first in kind, you know, subsidy offers that T-Mobile are offering to market as kind of this campaign hook as part of some of those activities. And then, you know, as Carl said, choosing the right resellers and those kind of partners who actually, you know, they have the capability to be able to sell. You're arming them with the right tools to be able to then start conversations based on leads and things like that that are generated. I think that's something that I've loved working with you guys on over the past year. So I'm just going to bring my screen up if I can get it to work again, just to kind of give an illustration to our kind of listeners today around what some of the processes are that we go through. So we have a relatively scalable model that we've been working on with the T-Mobile team, the SellHub team this year, around building these kind of partner-focused ABM programs where we'll work with a specific partner, we'll kind of agree with them, you know, how do we want to be positioning this to your customers? What content exists? Who do we want to be targeting? How do we create some net new content that we can kind of push to this audience? Make sure that we've got that sales alignment in place so that any kind of marketing activity that's happening is all going through some form of, you know, sales engine at the same time so that any leads or engaged accounts can be followed up on. And then using kind of a multi-channel approach with, you know, variety of media channels, email, and then kind of BDR and SDR functions to be able to target these kind of collections of accounts that partners want to be able to grow their business within. We're then monitoring that through kind of some of our proprietary data systems to essentially build what we call marketing qualified accounts. So where we're looking at a variety of different touch points, engagement data across a variety of different channels, so that when it comes to that activity that the partner sales team are doing as a result of the campaign, we're arming them with data that allows them to prioritize follow-up. We're helping them understand more around kind of buyer groups and decision-making groups, so that it's not so much just about lead generation, but almost how do we find accounts that are showing high levels of intent and engagement across a variety of different marketing tactics that mean that sales team is more likely to have a kind of a hit, you know, to catch that fish when they start to kind of explore targeting some of these accounts with their sales team. So wanting to kind of bring this up just to kind of illustrate this is some of the process that we've been going through with Paul and Carl this year. And, you know, so far we're starting to see some kind of great outcomes, great feedback from partners as a result of this. You know, it's marketing capabilities that some of these partners haven't had, or it's supplementing things that they're already investing in, like webinars and events, and, you know, being able to then find new contacts, new data that they can then bring into their own marketing targeting activities. So I'd be interested, Carl, like if you were to describe, you know, any of the kind of the work over the past 6 months that we've been doing together, like, how would you describe the value of kind of having an agency within that mix? Obviously would love you to be effusive in terms of, what that response is, but, warts and all, would love to get a bit of perspective on, how you found that process and working with an agency partner.
Yes, I'd be delighted to share with the audience the experience that I've had. This was my first time working with a marketing practice. So there's a massive compelling event that's happening next year in the industry, and that is Windows 10, which has been, the operating system for many corporations for many years, is going end of life. So in October next year, that's happening. And that means organizations are going to have to pivot to the next operating system, which arguably is going to be Windows 11. Now, Windows 11, just by design, is going to mandate certain hardware features and functions that don't exist on many of the laptops that are running Windows 10 today. So therefore, organizations are A, going to have to upgrade their operating system, and B, most likely contemplate an upgrade of the laptop, right? So T-Mobile recognized this early on. And with our help, we had some workshops. We developed a strategy around how could we go and attack this market? How could we help channel partners embrace 5G connected laptops? When you're upgrading to Windows 11, most likely you're going to look at the AI features that are available, so Copilot and things of that nature. How do you give the employee a much better experience that's not just a piece of hardware, but really and truly a device that enables them to connect to the resources that they need wherever they are at any time, on the go, securely, without the hassle and the risk of looking for a Wi-Fi connection? So we had this compelling event. We had this concept. With Paul's help, he was able to put in place a structure and a framework and a program that was very attractive to the channel partners. However, we needed a vehicle or a method to evangelize, socialize, and communicate this out to those channel partners that we cherry picked, right? Remember, I told you, we picked a handful of partners to run with this, that were capable, that had the practices in place, that could actually ingest everything that was created. Now, as you can imagine, these are very large, capable partners with marketing teams. So the question is, well, then how could the marketing practice come in and tell them about things that, they arguably knew? Well, that's not the case. You guys have very unique skill set and very unique capabilities and very unique talents and an excellent motion, I would say. I really enjoyed the way we worked together. You guys came in, first and foremost, you understand technology, you understand the market, you understand the need. And more importantly, I think you understand the buyer persona and the journey that buyer goes on. And that's massive, right? Because I've worked with other agencies at prior companies that didn't really understand technology. And to be honest with you, I'd spend a lot of time telling the agency what the technology is and rewriting a lot of the content. And, it was a bit of a challenge, to say the least. You guys hit the ground running. I would say, you well orchestrated and architected the campaign, which was fantastic. I've gotten really great feedback from the marketing teams that you worked with at the partners, which is always good, right? So they felt that you came in as a true trusted advisor to help them maximize the investment that we were putting into them, which was not insignificant thanks to T-Mobile, right? And so I'd say working with the team had been great. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on the marketing practice call, but you really helped the partner and different stakeholders within the partner. That's very important too. You got the buy-in at the executive level. So you didn't just talk to the marketing team, you talked cross-functionally and explained to sales what this campaign was all about, understanding what their customers were looking for. I think all too many times campaigns don't fully do the deep data discovery to understand what problem are they actually solving, what else is out there, what workarounds are customers employing today, and why they actually need this solution. So I think you guys did a great job with the messaging, with the structure, and more importantly, with the follow-up. Because this campaign that we ran with Connected Laptop ran for 11 weeks, right? So it was an email campaign. It was an enablement hub, a place where people could go to research, to do their own research, and enter then marketing qualified leads. One of the key things, though, I really like about TMP is the fact that you're always engaged. You are bringing the data to the meetings. So every week we're looking at the data, right? So it's not just looking at something and we're going to execute a campaign and hope to God that this executes well. Every week we're looking at the data and course correcting. And we had to do that a few times, right? Because that's just the nature of it. But if you don't have that rigor, and if you don't have that enthusiasm, and if you don't bring the data, and you don't understand the stakeholders that have different vying interests, that's very challenging. And you guys are masters of that. I would say too, Matt, personally, I got a lot out of this relationship with you specifically. I write a lot of content. I'm also an attorney, so I spent 3 years in private practice where every day I was writing demand letters. I write till the cows come home. Plus, I'm Irish, right? I can't help myself. But I write sometimes, and I think it's good. But you brought a different lens and questioned the way I was writing on certain things, which really I think helped us give the right set of assets to the partners. And I know they appreciate it because now they have assets that are good quality, well thought through, on point, that they don't have to be the experts. They can deliver this content to their customers, get that marketing qualified lead, and then call in the cavalry, which is us. So they know they have the support. And it's starting to pay dividends now. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not an easy sell selling a 5G connected laptop. First and foremost, you have to get over the argument that, oh, Wi-Fi is good enough. But again, we're selling the experience. And we're looking at that compelling event. We have the assets now, those seeds are planted. And I believe 2025, based on the back of this campaign, is going to be very successful for us all.
I knew there was a reason why I invited you to this call, Carl. So yeah, thank you for that.
Did you vend me that $20?
It's in your holiday card. And so Paul, kind of coming back to the outcome side of things, it'd be interesting to hear, what are some of the feedback that you're hearing from partners who are involved in this, or, from the work that you're then collaborating on with your marketing team at T-Mobile? Are you seeing some of this kind of approach and this change in mindset when it comes to MDF? Is it starting to move the needle? Are you seeing there kind of be more accountability for the outcomes and the results? Like, what's the perspective on that?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of kind of data points here, if you will. I think here's the first one. So I'm in year 18 with T-Mobile. I spent a couple of years at Samsung, so most of my career has been with some pretty big shops. I think the lens. I'll give you another example. So Amy Rintamaki is my peer on the marketing side. There's probably not a week that Amy doesn't work 80 hours a week. Like, she's super hardworking, super busy. You'd think that a big shop like T-Mobile, because again, I keep saying we're the biggest telecom because it sounds fun to say. Well, it's true too, but like, it's fun to say. When you worked here, when we had like 6 million customers, like I did, like, now that it's like you're the Detroit Lions, you're 0-16, and now I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. But anyways, so my point is this: you'd think we have all of this expertise in-house that you guys do, Matt. We don't. We don't. And I'm watching my marketing team. I don't think they could work like literally any harder. It's this, like, they work incredibly, incredibly hard. And so without partners, in this sense, you guys are the partner to be able to go help us with this and have the expertise here, we'd be in a little bit of hot water. We spent yesterday doing a bunch of marketing, sales, ops, and marketing planning for 20. We kind of do these iterations, but we're getting down to where, like, okay, pencils down type of moment here, because it's the now 5th of December, and I've learned that in less than a month next year, 2025 will start. And we're having a second follow-up session later today that I'm really excited for, because it's all MDF planning. It's the entire MDF plan, and it's what we're doing, what we're not. And I will tell you, we've shifted a significant amount of dollars away from what I would just call traditional marketing or MDF planning into ABM campaigns, because of what I said before around the ROI. So we can literally measure, we put a nickel into this machine, this is how much we get back, because it comes back in terms of leads. It's, what's the qualification relative to the interest level that the client showed within that. So you can kind of go like super hot, warm, lukewarm to cold lead. So if I'm the partner on the other side, I mean, I'm hoping, because we're not there yet, but I'm hoping it gets to a little more like fish in a barrel type of scenario, where you're like, okay, every week I've got a couple of like really hot leads that are coming off of all this ABM campaign. And to Carl's point, we're early on the connected laptop side of things for sure. And not all this ABM stuff is just connected laptops, but it's a big part of the future because as Carl states, I mean, there is an event like the world has never seen relative to technology that's going to occur next year with Windows 11. And everything's lined up for it. And the interesting thing is, if you're a customer or partner out there, again, what's your mobility strategy 2 to 3 years from now? Because you're going to buy a device that you're probably going to hold an inventory for 3 to 4 years. And so do you want to embrace that technology or continue to avoid it and then be stuck 24 months in wishing you had made a different decision, 24 months earlier, if you will. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but to answer the question specifically around ABM, and we're right in the middle of the planning cycle with it. I think we're probably going to continue to go, how do we move dollars from this bucket here into a more targeted approach? Because the way I think about the world from a channel perspective, every week I look at how many leads did we bring into T-Mobile for Business, and what was our target, and did we hit our target, and did we hit it in SMB? Did I hit it in enterprise? Did I hit it in government? And if I didn't, then I got to go back and look at, well, what are we doing from a marketing and sales perspective? And is this a trend, or was it just a bad week, or whatever? But you get into that rigor, which Carl was talking, like you get into this rigor of like, okay, how do I go run the business? And it's very much based on what are the leads and opportunities that the partners are bringing in to be able to help the rest of the business.
And do you see, so, I'm going to stick on the connected laptop kind of product area here, but I don't know who's joined us from which kind of companies, but if you think about vendors who are investing in MDF,
they probably all use a laptop, as my guess, man.
Yeah, maybe not. But one of the things that I'm thinking is, if you're thinking about ways to invest MDF in campaigns in future, this also, I think, provides an opportunity for collaboration with other vendors as well, right? Where you can bring
100%.
OEMs into these kinds of situations, and it can be a T-Mobile and Microsoft Surface, or whatever, where there's more opportunities, I think, for actual vendor-to-vendor collaboration when you take an approach that is more measurable, because then both organizations have the opportunity to then report back to their stakeholders, their leadership, in this kind of way. So, I certainly see opportunities there for kind of broader vendor-to-vendor collaboration in this way as well. And so I know we're almost at time. I want to kind of ask one final thing, which is just kind of as we look to 2025, crazy to think that we're almost there. What practical advice would you give if we've got a channel sales or marketing leader who's on this call today? They're looking to supercharge partner-generated opportunities, like thinking about how MDF plays a role in that. What practical advice would you give to those kinds of people thinking about next year's plans?
Yeah, I can go first. So I'll go back to what I said before, but I'll turn it internally. So if I'm a sales leader sitting on this call, or even if I'm just any, marketing, whatever it is, I would want to know what's my front line saying to our customers? What is the talk track that they have? And is mobility a part of that? Now, obviously, selfishly, you're going to say, Paul, you work at a mobile I get it. I do. But again, is the world going to be less connected or more connected 3 years from now? It's going to be more connected wirelessly. Like T-Mobile was not an ISP 3 years ago. We have been the fastest growing, and we have done more activations every quarter for 10 straight quarters than the rest of the industry combined. It's all wireless. So all the fiber that's in like people are moving away from fiber to go to wire. So again, just in that thinking through that process, okay, if I was all my business was selling fiber through, fiber or just fixed landline terrestrial connections 3 years ago, and I'm still doing that, I would want to go, well, okay, why are we doing that? Why don't we have a mobility strategy here? Why don't we have a cut the cord strategy, so to speak? And why aren't we getting into that? Here's the other lens I would give you. I'm old enough in this business to remember when BlackBerry first came out. And I think this is very relevant to connected laptops. When BlackBerry first came out, I remember my boss had one, and I was always like, wow, that's a really thing. Now, if you guys remember, this is like 2003, 2004, so I'm probably predating myself a little bit. But when BlackBerry first came out, BlackBerry was an email-only device in a handheld variety. And the biggest objection you would get is, well, I'm never going to need that. Why would I ever need email outside of the office? This is crazy. And of course we were charging a data revenue off of it. And that's a cost. So you're going and talking to the C-suites of companies and they're going, I'm never going to do this. Well, fast 3 years later, everybody's got a BlackBerry, and then BlackBerry figured out, wait, we could make it a phone. And then, Android came along and said, we can do the same thing. And then Apple launched the iPhone. And next thing you know, you would never even think of not having, like, we go into like shock as a society if we can't check email like every, 4 minutes on our phone. So think of connected laptops as a very similar methodology here. It may not be something today that you're thinking about, but it's got to be something in the future.
So Paul checks his email every 4 minutes, but he never responds to mine. That's very interesting.
Never. On purpose.
So
you can set up like
for
rules of auto deletes and just things go into a junk box. That's where Carl's goes on mine. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I'd say, Matt, is not going to be earth-shattering or probably the marketing folks on the call. I would say first and foremost, invest in a robust customer research and market intelligence, right? To truly understand the audience before you embark on any campaign. I mean, that's table stakes, obviously. Understand their pain points, really understand their pain points. And then how is the offering that you're trying to communicate unique, right? That's vital. In the connected laptop, we've cracked it. I'd say second, you must establish clear and measurable KPIs. That's very important, especially in the new world, as Paul's talked about this new transition to the new MDF program, where T-Mobile rightly needs to show a return on every dollar invested, right? And therefore, everything must be tracked, that must be measurable, and organizations, ourselves included, must be accountable. I would say marketers need to empower cross-functional collaboration. That's been very, very vital in the connected laptop programs because of what I told you, right? So the C-suite gets it. Line of business owner might be operating in their own world and not quite understand why they're being asked to engage in this campaign, right? You have to show the value for the different personas and stakeholders, and you have to be able to communicate that cross-functionally, specifically in sales, because sales are a little bit hesitant to embrace new things sometimes, right? Because it's a departure from what they know. And if people aren't comfortable selling something or don't feel well-versed in the technology or the value prop, if you haven't cracked that as a marketing person, then it's very difficult to win those hearts and minds of the sellers. They're going to default to what they know, and that's human nature. I would say, and you guys do this very, very well, implement that strict governance, right? A campaign that runs for 12 weeks, people can get a bit jaded, right? If they just show up and they're not enthusiastic about it, or they're not really diving into the data and understanding what the lever that they can pull and operate. And the last thing I'd say is don't be afraid to fail and fail fast, especially from a marketing perspective. That's okay, right? It's okay to reevaluate what your initial thesis was. Is it still applicable? If it isn't, then, reinvent and reinvent quickly and come up with new campaign or new ideas or new messaging, because it's only going to benefit everybody, right? So don't be afraid to fail fast and pivot and make changes. That would be my advice. Simple.
Some great top tips. I would say, my one piece of advice: follow Paul and Carl on LinkedIn. These guys, wealth of knowledge and insight, and so worth giving these guys a follow. But I think we're probably at time. May have space for one or two questions if there's any questions from the audience in the chat, which I will check. Paul, question for you around what are your top 3 priorities? I think we probably touched mostly on that during this conversation. I don't know if there's anything that you would want to add from anything outside of what we've already spoken about.
No, I mean, it's really, connected laptop is something that folks have been around. If you do follow me on LinkedIn, I talk a lot about that. That was my keynote at Channel Partners. I've actually got an interview later today with CRN. And so in January, check out CRN and look for our piece on connected laptops. So that's a huge portion. Fixed wireless, again, I kind of just talked about fixed wireless a little bit. And then we still love to, I mean, we're a cell phone company. We sell tons of cell phones and tablets and anything connected. So yeah.
Great. Well, yeah, any folks who will be at Channel Partners in March, hopefully we will see you there. But thank you, everybody, for joining. Carl, Paul, thank you for the contributions, conversation today. It's been great. And then, yeah, everybody who is on the line, hope you can check out the rest of our Partner Week sessions. We'll have recordings from everything that has been going out this week. Following this week, and yeah, really appreciate everybody for joining. Hope you found this useful. So thank you all.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Paul. Great to talk to you guys. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Carl.
Bye.
Bye.